Hey, what's up, everybody? It's halftime between the Vikings and the Skins. Feel free to type any questions or comments about the first half. That last drive obviously changed the tone of what I'm going to be saying, at least a little bit. Um, this is a team in the Redskins that have averaged 6 points a game the last 4 games. I think was the number that they discussed on the broadcast. But I think it's a little bit of a different scenario. Just in that Case Keenum's back, AP is back. They're really like clearly playing up for this contest. It's really kind of it's a weird first half, just in that Cousins was what? I think the stat I saw was, let me double check. Like 16 of 17 or something in passing. And so it's hard to see. Yeah, 12 of 13, sorry, for 173 yards. That's where I got that from. It's hard to really say the offense isn't working. I think they're getting the yardage. They're just not converting in the red zone. This would be a completely different game if they were as efficient in the red zone as they have been the last couple games. We'd be talking about a 20-6 situation. The reason it doesn't really show up on Cousins' stat sheet is because he got sacked those couple times in the red zone, and there were some comments in the live chat that the Vikings should just hand the ball off every time, and they're in the red zone, which would have helped in Green Bay. It clearly worked at the end of that half, but it was the passing game that got them where they were, whether it was a screen to Cook or other guys stepping up. So I would have been extremely frustrated if they were tied 6-6, because it just doesn't feel like they're as up for this game as you would anticipate them being. Granted, they are 3 games removed from their last game, but so are the Redskins, so that's not really an excuse, I guess. But I think that last drive really kind of personified, or exemplified rather, the type of offense that this Vikings team is going to have. Cousins is getting good numbers. He's being efficient. 12 of 13 is pretty darn good. He's not really airing the ball out like we've seen in the last couple weeks. A lot of that yardage comes from after the catch yards picked up by Diggs, which we'll talk about in a second. But the heart and soul is Dalvin Cook, and him fighting for that touchdown on 3rd and goal at the end of the quarter really showed that. He's just, he was already over 100 all-purpose yards before that in the first half. He's just a beast. He's omnipresent. There's nothing he really can't do. He's not the world's greatest blocker, but he's serviceable. But he's just really, that cliche of the third year, usually for the wide receiver. It seems like his third year, he's fresh because he was injured for half of his career thus far. And the Vikings are just finding new ways to get him the ball and to include him more. And it's been paying off for them, obviously. That having been said, this first half was just not good. It was blah. The defense was doing their bend, don't break thing, where they had to basically give up chunk yardage as if they were playing prevent up by 40 points until they get to the 10-yard line. Then they bust out all these heroics to make sure that the Redskins don't find the end zone. That's exhausting. Just like as somebody watching, I don't want to watch that. I'm sure they're not doing it on purpose. That's such a flippant way to talk about it. But you guys, from a fan perspective, it's like, this. If this team was only averaging 6 points a game before this, they weren't. They played the 49ers last week. That's an elite defense. But they weren't playing the 2000 Ravens every week. I want to see this Vikings defense get meaner. And I know that's not really their MO, but I would like to see them just how it felt when we played the Bears this season. Do that to the Redskins. It's a huge ask. I understand that, but these guys know each other really well. They've been together forever. They've been in the system forever. They're all really, really, really talented. It would just be nice to see that extra. Okay, we're at home against a bad opponent. Let's just 3 and out. They don't necessarily have to be mean. I think the Redskins are showing a lot of chippiness in this game. I'm not saying that, but I just mean overwhelming and aggressive. Something Kirby and I talked about before the show was, I want to see some blitzes and just aggressive play calling. But maybe Zimmer's a little bit gun shy with Keenum because Keenum is so elusive under pressure, or at least he was when he was playing here. But yeah, it just seems like they're playing not to lose. Justin, one of the people agreed with me in the comment that said, "Where did our aggressiveness go?" I think that might be I don't know. I want to write an article about Zimmer and peak Zimmer or Zimmer in big important games, and I think of like 2015 when they played the Seahawks in the playoffs, first round. The missed field goal kind of took everyone's attention off that game, but that defense seemed, even though it was a lot of the same guys, just younger, seemed in that game to just be swarming and just amazing. I really do think the temperature had something to do with that. Obviously, it was one of the coldest playoff games, if not the coldest playoff game in NFL history. But that's the meanness I want to see. That's when Khalil Mack is dominating a game. That's like he was last season. You're just like, man, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. That's really not what's happening right now. Like I said, you're seeing AP at 50 years old cutting back, and if he was a vintage AP, he would have housed that one 13-yard run scamper that he had. You're just seeing these guys that aren't good. The Redskins might be playing really well because they have an emotional incentive in their quarterback and an AP. And they're really dressing it up on the coverage, talking about how they're not good now, but look at how great this, and they're coming together and they're learning each other. They're a bad team. They're doing that because they're not just going to sit there and crap on the opponent. Why would because it's like me being a host at a restaurant and being like bringing the restaurant or the dessert platter over and being like, yeah, this cheesecake sucks, but the thing next to it's all right. Well, you scheduled it, NFL, so figure that out. I agree. I mean, even Justin said the 2017 defense was so aggressive. I would even argue that part of the reason that Seahawks game fell apart was because they were too aggressive with their play calling. They really tried to up the ante and bring in all these new little different looks for Doug Peterson and company to chew on, and they just got confused. I'll never forget seeing Harrison Smith after one of the multiple big games, but it was early in that game. He kind of went like, what are we doing here? A couple other quick things I want to talk about, then I'll let you guys go. Diggs fumbled again. I applaud the fact that he wrapped up the ball on the second big gainer that he had. But I talked about this week, on the radio and on my podcasts. And, I'm not even really ripping on Diggs because, I mean, if it happened once, I would more so say, like, stuff happens. And that's why you don't rip on your quarterback publicly, especially because you guys are all human and nobody is perfect. And this is... there's a lot of moving parts here. The better Cousins has been doing, the more I look at the situation last year and maybe learning things this year and seeing a lot of just pressure and strange things going on with the offensive coordinator and the head coach last year. You had no run game. So maybe they couldn't figure out how to best use Cousins, and maybe they do know how to use him now, and he's a lot more comfortable and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter, though. Maybe for the media, our job is to point stuff out like that publicly, but to do it the way that Diggs did it and then hold that press conference and be all nonchalant about really important things, I think is maybe he's smart enough to realize that he put a lot of undue pressure on himself by doing that. He had to come out and play immaculately because if Cousins starts getting you the ball, which is what you clearly wanted, you were upset about it enough to call that, during the press conference. It's not really a press conference, but a question and answer. You basically made it seem like you're the second coming and that you're not going to, there's truth to every rumor and you're mad, like you basically said you were upset about Cousins' play. So he's getting you the ball. I mean, you're incredibly important. I mean, the timing couldn't be any more ironic for Diggs because now he's there and, usually Thielen is the guy without Diggs because Diggs is historically missed 2 to 3 games a season. But now it's all on Diggs. He's out there opposite a rookie. The Vikings only brought in 4 receivers tonight, and he's done this 3 weeks in a row now. He's fumbled twice. This one actually hurt the Vikings. The last one, Alexander Madison hopped on it. He had a wide open touchdown last week that he just didn't catch. And the week before that, he had two things wrong. I know he had the interception that bounced off his face mask that ended up going to Sendejo. And point being, Diggs is not historically done this, so I think he has put pressure on himself, and he's clearly not handling it well. So maybe that'll help him empathize with the pressure that Cousins was under, and maybe why things weren't working so well for him. Because Cousins has to do 1,000% more things than Diggs has to do. It's not even close. That's not a spicy take. I'm not breaking any news here, but if Diggs can't handle the pressure he put on himself, then keep your mouth shut, I guess. It's Cousins has pressure, but it's not from him. He's at least trying to say the right things and apologize on his podcast. And even Zimmer was like, well, Zimmer was not happy about that. Diggs more is just kind of definitely being a diva, and I would argue that he's done more in this short time than Randy Moss ever did. Everyone ran Randy out of town. Randy never did stuff like this. He hit a crossing guard with his car. He got mad about the catering in 2010. He did walk off the field, but I would defend that because if you knew the context, or if you don't remember that context, which a lot of people don't, he was protesting Red McCombs spending no money on the defense. And the Vikings starting 6-0 the season before that and missing the playoffs. Then starting 5-1 that season, and they were on the cusp of missing the playoffs. And it was the same season that McCombs was fined for being so far under the salary cap that he tried to sneakily put a bunch of signing bonuses to meet that bare minimum. And he was fined for it, and Moss was mad about that because he knew he was in his prime and that Culpepper was playing well. They still made the playoffs after that, and they beat Green Bay, and then they jettisoned Moss off. But in terms of what's detrimental to the team, Diggs has done more, obviously, and Moss showed up in big moments. Diggs has not proven his ability to do that, yet the Vikings gave him a massive contract, a top 12 wide receiver contract, before he even broke the 1,000-yard in a season mark. So he should not be mad at the team. He should only be mad at himself. That's the point I'm taking there. But speaking of Zimmer not being happy, they did talk about how Zimmer this week must have, during the interviews that the guys do in the booth with the coaches, that Rhodes is healthy. He needs to play better. It's just seemed like Rhodes has been injured. Maybe that's a carryover from last season and a lot of the jokes about him feigning injury when he was burned. I don't really think that's the case because there was that ankle injury last year that looked really bad. I just accepted that the new Rhodes is going to be continually hurt. I didn't question that he was probably sore. His hammies are probably messed up. His groin, some of the stuff he had last season. He tried to fix it with Pilates and all that. But Zimmer said he's healthy. Probably not 100% healthy, but healthy enough, and that he needs to play better. Now, that's not the first time Zimmer has said that about Rhodes, speaking of big contracts. And so last week, we had a lot of people talking about getting rid of Trey Waynes. I think Waynes had a bad game last week. I think he's played better this week. He had that nice pass breakup. But Rhodes is not playing well. I think he knows that. I think he showed that in his frustration last week when he threw his helmet. But if you're talking about getting rid of anybody, granted the salaries don't really work as well. Waynes is up, and Mackenzie Alexander are up next year. But Rhodes is, he was a top 5 guy, and he's just been injured and slower. He's lost a step. And I think the writing might be on the wall for him because when Zimmer says stuff in the media, like they said, he's going to tell you, and he might do it as a last resort to maybe he's talked to the guy about it. He's not doing it. I'm going to go to the media, let them handle it, give him that pressure to show I'm not messing around. I don't think he just blurts things out. But when he says things, it's not 3D level chess or anything. He's saying what he means, and that doesn't bode well for Rhodes. But they have Mike Hughes, and that would free up some cap space, depending on how that would work out. So that wouldn't be the end of the world after the season's over. But I'm hoping he'll still get things together, or they'll kind of start putting Hughes in more, so maybe he can heal. I don't know. But yeah, it was overall just a blah first half. I'm really happy about the touchdown before halftime because that would have been really, really rough. But I'll let you guys go. I have a bunch of other stuff I wanted to talk about, but we can get to that in the post game show. So hopefully, that'll be a happy time, and we'll forget about the first half because the Vikings are going to come out and just put up like 5 touchdowns back to back. But we'll see. Hopefully, you guys will tune in after the game. I will do a better job of paying attention to your comments then and answering any questions that you have for me or Kirby. But Skull, let's go.